Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, where we bring you inspiring stories of resilience, redemption, and unexpected twists. Today's story is one that will challenge your perspective and leave you reflecting on the power of humility and hidden strength. What happens when a group of bikers picks the wrong target? A seemingly quiet man who's anything but ordinary. What starts as a simple encounter escalates into a life-altering moment for everyone involved. Stay with us as we explore a tale of quiet confidence, unexpected lessons, and the courage to stand your ground. If you love stories that inspire and surprise, make sure to comment below and let us know where you're listening from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story from Hopeful Horizon. The soft hum of fluorescent lights filled the small break room as Elliot Carter adjusted his glasses and grabbed his brown leather satchel. Another quiet lunch break was coming to an end, and he was ready to head out for his favorite midday ritual, a drive to the local gas station for a fresh turkey sandwich and a cold soda. Elliot wasn't the type to stand out. His button-up shirt was always neatly pressed, but plain. His wire-rimmed glasses sat on a face that was more thoughtful than bold. Sneakers, practical and unassuming, completed the picture of a man who preferred the background to the spotlight. At 31, Elliot's life revolved around his job as a software engineer at a small tech firm, his love of old-school comic books, and the gadgets he tinkered with in his spare time. He found peace in routine and saw no need to attract attention. As he drove his modest gray sedan down the road, Elliot allowed himself a small smile. The gas station's turkey sandwiches weren't gourmet by any stretch, but they were comfortingly reliable. The drive was short, and soon, the familiar sight of the station came into view. A quiet little spot nestled between an auto repair shop and a convenience store. Elliot parked, stepped out, and adjusted his glasses. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and asphalt as he walked toward the glass doors. Inside, the store was just as he remembered. Rows of snacks, racks of sodas, and the counter where a young cashier gave him a polite nod. Grabbing his usual sandwich and a bottle of root beer, Elliot paid, exchanged pleasantries, and stepped back outside. That was when he heard them. The low, rumbling growl of motorcycle engines filled the air as a gang of bikers rolled into the gas station. There were 6 of them, each clad in leather jackets adorned with patches that proclaimed allegiance to a club Elliot had never heard of. The leader, a broad-shouldered man with a thick beard and a shaved head, parked his bike closest to the entrance. His jacket bore the name Tank, embroidered in bold white stitching. Elliot instinctively lowered his gaze and moved toward his car, sandwich and soda in hand. He'd learned long ago that avoiding unnecessary conflict was the best way to navigate life. Unfortunately, Tank had other plans. "Hey, check it out," Tank said loudly, his gravelly voice laced with amusement. "Looks like we got ourselves a real-life pocket protector over here." The other bikers laughed, their voices echoing across the parking lot. Elliot paused, his grip tightening on his soda bottle. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that their words meant nothing. "Where you headed, nerd?" Another biker called out, his tone mocking. "Gotta get back to your science fair?" Elliot said nothing. He kept walking, but his quiet demeanor only seemed to fuel their taunts. "Aw, come on, Tank," one of them sneered. "He's just trying to figure out how to teleport back to his mom's basement." The laughter grew louder, and Elliot felt the heat of embarrassment rise in his chest. Still, he stayed calm, knowing they were looking for a reaction. He made it to his car and reached for the handle when, out of nowhere, he felt something cold and wet splash against his leg. Looking down, he saw his soda bottle lying on the pavement, its contents spilling onto his sneakers. One of the bikers, a wiry man with a toothpick in his mouth, smirked at him. "Oops, my bad." Elliot bent down, picked up the bottle, and straightened without a word. His mind raced, but he kept his movement steady. As he turned back to his car, he heard Tank's voice again, this time much closer. "You're not leaving yet, nerd." A large, calloused hand clamped down on Elliot's shoulder. He froze, his sandwich still in one hand and the empty soda bottle in the other. The bikers closed in around him, their laughter fading into an unsettling silence. Elliot turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting Tank's for the first time. "I don't want any trouble," he said quietly. Tank chuckled darkly. "Oh, I think trouble just found you." The air around Elliot seemed to grow heavier as the bikers closed the circle. Tank's grip on his shoulder was firm, a silent promise that escape wasn't an option. Elliot looked around, assessing the situation. His training kicked in. Not the kind of training that came from coding algorithms or soldering circuits, but the kind honed over years in a martial arts dojo. He didn't want to fight, but if they forced his hand, he was ready. "Look, I'm just here to eat my lunch," Elliot said evenly, his voice calm despite the tension. "Let me go, and I'll be on my way." Tank leaned in, his breath reeking of tobacco. "What's the rush? We're just getting to know each other." One of the bikers, a burly man with a scar running down his cheek, stepped forward and shoved Elliot lightly. "Yeah, nerd boy, don't be rude." Elliot held his ground, his calm demeanor starting to unnerve the group. The scarred biker smirked, mistaking Elliot's silence for fear. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" Tank released Elliot's shoulder, only to give him a rough shove that sent him stumbling back a step. The bikers laughed again, their voices grating like nails on a chalkboard. "Say you're sorry," Tank demanded, crossing his arms. "For what?" Elliot asked, his tone measured. "For breathing the same air as us," Tank shot back. The others howled with laughter, but Elliot didn't flinch. "I won't apologize for that," Elliot said, "and I won't ask twice. Let me go." The laughter died down, replaced by an uncomfortable pause. The scarred biker frowned, clearly annoyed. "You got a smart mouth for someone who's outnumbered." Before Elliot could respond, the scarred biker threw a punch. Time seemed to slow. Elliot sidestepped with precision, his movements smooth and practiced. The punch missed entirely, leaving the biker off balance. In a single fluid motion, Elliot grabbed the man's wrist, twisted it, and used the momentum to sweep his legs out from under him. The biker hit the ground hard, groaning in pain. The remaining bikers stared, their bravado faltering. "What the hell was that?" one of them muttered. Elliot adjusted his glasses, his expression unreadable. "I warned you." Two bikers lunged at him simultaneously, their movements fueled by anger rather than skill. Elliot moved like water, fluid and adaptable. He ducked under one punch, deflecting another with a sharp block. A quick strike to the ribs sent one biker staggering, while a well-placed kick knocked the other's legs out from under him. The gas station was no longer quiet. The sound of grunts, scuffling feet, and gasps filled the air. The cashier inside watched through the glass, wide-eyed and frozen. Tank snarled, pulling a length of chain from his belt. "You think you're tough, huh? Let's see how tough you are now." He swung the chain with a ferocity that would have intimidated most people. But Elliot wasn't most people. His eyes tracked the movement, calculating angles and timing. As the chain arced toward him, Elliot stepped into the swing, deflecting the chain with his forearm and grabbing it mid-air. Tank's eyes widened in shock as Elliot yanked the chain from his hands with practiced ease. Elliot tossed the chain to the ground and stepped closer to Tank, who now looked uncertain for the first time. "This is your last chance," Elliot said, his voice steady. "Walk away." Tank hesitated, glancing at his fallen comrades. His pride battled with his survival instincts. Finally, he took a step back, raising his hands in mock surrender. "You got lucky," he spat. "This ain't over." Elliot said nothing, watching as Tank helped the others to their feet. One by one, the bikers retreated to their motorcycles, casting nervous glances over their shoulders. As the roar of engines faded into the distance, Elliot sighed and bent down to pick up his spilled soda bottle. His sandwich was still intact, though slightly squished. He dusted himself off and climbed into his car, the adrenaline slowly ebbing from his veins. Before driving away, he glanced at the cashier, who gave him a small, shaky wave. Elliot nodded in return, then turned his attention back to the road. Lunch break was over. It was time to get back to work. The bikers stood in a loose circle around Elliot, their faces a mix of anger and disbelief. Tank, now gripping a heavy steel chain, swung it threateningly in front of him. The sound of the chain clinking sent shivers through the air, drawing the attention of a few customers at the gas station who were now cautiously watching from a distance. Tank smirked, his leather jacket creaking as he tightened his grip. "You've got some moves, nerd, but let's see if you can dodge this." Elliot calmly adjusted his glasses, his demeanor as unbothered as ever. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, his voice firm but calm. Tank laughed, his voice echoing over the hum of nearby traffic. Hurt me? That's rich. You're lucky I didn't break your glasses yet. As Tank swung the chain, Elliot's hand slipped into his pocket, his fingers curling around a small, nondescript device. It was no larger than a deck of cards, with a sleek black surface and a single glowing button. This wasn't something he'd picked up at a tech store. It was a prototype he'd been working on, part of his contract with a top-tier government agency. The chain whipped toward him, but before it could connect, Elliot pressed the button. A sharp, high-frequency sound filled the air. It wasn't loud, but it was piercing, vibrating in a way that seemed to rattle the very bones of anyone nearby. The bikers immediately staggered, clutching their ears and grimacing in pain. Even Tank, who had seemed invincible moments ago, dropped the chain and stumbled backward, his hands flying to his head. Elliot stepped forward, his movements calm and precise, and with a quick sweep of his foot, sent the chain skittering across the pavement. "What the hell is that?" one of the bikers groaned, his voice strained as he tried to steady himself. "It's called a sonic disruptor," Elliot said, deactivating the device and slipping it back into his pocket. "Just a little side project I've been working on, good for situations like this." Tank, now shaking off the disorientation, glared at Elliot. "You're dead," he snarled, charging forward. Elliot sidestepped effortlessly, grabbing Tank's wrist and using his momentum against him. With a fluid motion, he twisted Tank's arm behind his back and swept his legs out from under him, sending the hulking biker crashing to the ground. The gas station grew silent except for the labored breathing of the defeated bikers. Elliot crouched down next to Tank, keeping his grip firm. "You've got strength, but you lack control," he said. "It's your biggest weakness." Tank struggled, but couldn't break free. His face was red with a mix of anger and humiliation. "You think you're better than us?" he spat. Elliot let go and stood, brushing off his hands. "No," he said simply. "I just don't underestimate people." One of the bikers, still rubbing his ears, suddenly noticed something on the ground next to Elliot's car. It was a keychain with an emblem, a sleek design with an eagle perched atop a shield. His eyes widened in recognition. "Wait a second," he muttered, picking it up. This is from Blackthorn Industries." The other bikers exchanged confused glances, but the one holding the keychain looked visibly shaken. "You're with Blackthorn?" he asked, his voice tinged with awe. Elliot took the keychain from him and slipped it into his pocket. "I design tech for them," he said casually. "Military-grade hardware, to be precise. I also train in martial arts in my free time. Helps with focus." The bikers were stunned. They had assumed Elliot was just another quiet, unassuming guy, but now they realized they'd picked a fight with someone far more formidable than they could have imagined. Elliot turned to Tank, who was now sitting on the ground, glaring up at him. "Maybe next time," Elliot said, tossing the chain back to him. "Don't judge a book by its cover." Without waiting for a response, Elliot walked back to his car, opened the door, and slid into the driver's seat. The bikers watched in silence as he started the engine and drove away, leaving them nursing their bruises and their pride. The bikers didn't return to the gas station after that day. The story of their defeat at the hands of a seemingly mild-mannered man spread quickly among their circles, becoming something of a cautionary tale. Tank, once the unquestioned leader of the group, found himself questioning everything. He spent long hours replaying the encounter in his mind, his bruises serving as a constant reminder of his humiliation. But more than that, Elliot's words stuck with him. "You've got strength, but you lack control." One afternoon, Tank found himself outside a local community center. A banner hanging over the entrance read, "Martial Arts for Self-Discipline." For a moment, he hesitated. The idea of stepping into a place like this felt foreign to him. But then he remembered the calm confidence Elliot had displayed, and something inside him shifted. He walked inside. Meanwhile, Elliot's life returned to normal, or as normal as it could be for someone working on cutting-edge technology for the military. Back at his office, he sat in a sleek conference room, presenting his latest design to a team of executives. "This device," he explained, holding up a prototype, is capable of emitting a focused sonic pulse to disable enemy communications without causing permanent harm. The executives nodded, impressed. None of them had any idea that the same device had been used to fend off a group of bikers just days earlier. During lunch, one of his co-workers, a cheerful woman named Sarah, approached him. "Hey, Elliot," she said, sitting down across from him. "Did you hear about that incident at the gas station? Some bikers got taken down by this random guy. Apparently, he was like a ninja or something." Elliot smiled faintly, keeping his eyes on his sandwich. "Sounds like an interesting story," he said. "You're not even curious?" Sarah asked, raising an eyebrow. "Not really," Elliot replied, taking a sip of his soda. Sarah shook her head, laughing. "You're so weird, Elliot." Weeks later, Elliot was finishing up a late-night project when he heard a knock at the door. He opened it to find Tank standing there, looking nervous and out of place in a clean button-up shirt and jeans. "Can I help you?" Elliot asked, his tone cautious. Tank scratched the back of his neck. I wanted to apologize," he said, "for what happened at the gas station. I was out of line." Elliot studied him for a moment before stepping aside. "Come in." Tank hesitated but eventually stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room filled with blueprints and gadgets. "You've got quite the setup here," he said. Elliot nodded, leaning against the counter. "So, what's really on your mind?" Tank took a deep breath. "After that day, I started thinking about who I am and what I've been doing with my life. I went to a martial arts studio, started training. It's been helping me, but I've still got a long way to go." Elliot crossed his arms, intrigued. "And? I guess I was hoping—" Tank hesitated, then pulled out a small notebook. "You seem like someone who's got it all figured out. I was hoping you could give me some advice." Elliot stared at the notebook for a moment before taking it. He flipped through the pages, which were filled with notes about training regimens, goals, and reflections. "First piece of advice," Elliot said, handing the notebook back. "Don't look to others for all the answers. Figure out what drives you and go from there." Tank nodded, a small smile forming on his face. "Thanks." As Tank left, Elliot watched him go, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over him. He didn't need to prove himself to anyone, but it felt good to know he'd made an impact. Driving home that night, Elliot smiled to himself. Life had a way of throwing unexpected challenges his way, but he was always ready, because at the end of the day, it wasn't about being underestimated. It was about being prepared. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of strength, humility, and second chances. Elliot's story is a reminder that true power lies not in proving yourself to others, but in staying prepared and grounded, no matter the situation. If this story resonated with you, let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to share where you're listening from. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another story that inspires and challenges the way you see the world. Stay hopeful, stay inspired, and always remember, every moment holds the potential for growth. Until next time, thank you for being a part of our Hopeful Horizon community.